T-Talk Productions is happy to announce T-Talk Plus. Under T-Talk Productions, T-Talk Plus will be a venue to have secondary shows such as Sweet Tea and Fresh Brew, among other shows. This platform will also be used to host guests, have in-depth interviews, and the occasional monologue. If you enjoy T-Talk Productions, click the like button, and please do not forget to subscribe. We thank you for your support.
Come have a seat and sip some tea. It's tech, entertainment, and art.
It's funny because I could tell like something bothered you.
Dude, you have no idea. Like chills went up my spine. And I'm sweating like right now, big time. Okay.
So just so our listeners know
Dude,
what happened, can I give them a rundown, Abdi, of what happened?
Yes, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We were literally like 15 minutes into the podcast, and we just realized that Abdiel wasn't recording, so we had to.
Of course.
Make some adjustments.
I'm trying to compose myself. I feel so bad right now.
It's okay.
Anyway,
you can't cry over spilled milk.
That's right. We can't. Okay. Anyway, so let's just go straight for it. Welcome everyone to TEA Talk, your one destination for all your technology, entertainment, and art questions and curiosities, if I might say.
Yeah.
So we want to start right off the bat with some corrections from our last episode. In our last episode, I talked about solid state drives, and I said a lot of things about them, except what their main selling point is. So the biggest change that a solid state drive brings to a video game console is that load times are going to be much faster. In most cases, they're going to be instant. So load screens are going to disappear. I know, Sean, that you haven't played video games in a while, but you did play all the way. You told me that you played all the way back from like
PS3.
The PS1 era to all the way to the PS3, right? And you remember those load screens, right?
Yes. So
some of them were pretty long, and in some cases today they're even longer. Some cases have like 40 seconds load screens.
That's
so just
crazy to me. That seems like insane.
Yeah. AAA games, like state-of-the-art games that cost $50 million to make, stuff like that. So meaning that they have a lot of technical know-how behind them, and still they're not able to get the load times down. But with an SSD, like I said, that is going to solve that problem. That is basically going to eliminate load times in most games, if not all of them. So it's a big game changer. It's the biggest change that we have in video games in a long time.
Can I get my correction, Abdul? Are you ready for mine?
Absolutely, yes. Go ahead.
So on the last podcast, I believe we made the statement together that none of the new Star Wars movies were good, and we wanted to retract that statement. The prequel movies are actually, in my opinion, very good. Rogue One, which I thought was a very good movie. And
that's right.
Solo. It was
Absolutely.
Solo was decent. I would say at least decent.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. You know, when you said it, I was on the same page, man. When you said it, I was thinking the main 3 episodes.
Yes.
But yeah, now that you bring it up, definitely Solo and Rogue One were really good movies, especially Rogue One. Which is funny because it's a movie, I don't know if you remember me talking about it before when we worked together. I was very critical of it.
I remember
I don't know if it's going to be good.
In your previous podcast. In fact, every time I watch that movie, I think about what you said in the previous podcast you were in.
How wrong I was. It happens. It happens often.
Yep.
That's why we have corrections.
It's all good.
Okay.
So this is almost like a pre to each episode will be probably corrections.
Yes. Yeah. So each episode, that's right. Many podcasts do this, and I really like that. On every episode, we will start with corrections. Some we won't have any corrections, and some we will. There are certain things that we might get wrong, and we just don't have time to correct everything.
Of course.
But hopefully our corrections are, the things that we get wrong, hopefully they're not going to be that many. So we can assure our audience out there that we do some research, and we're gonna really work hard to deliver the most accurate information that we can.
And to keep in mind, we're just going off of articles and information or our own personal experience. So we're not, what's the word?
We're
not
we're amateurs.
What? We're not what?
We're amateurs.
Amateurs, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's right. This is a hobby,
yeah.
Everybody. So calm down. Okay, calm down.
Do you want me to go first, Abdiel, so we can keep it a little fresh?
Yeah, please go ahead,
okay,
so that I can.
You can calm down, Abdiel, so I could still feel his stress level.
Dude,
man,
I don't know if I'm gonna get over it this episode, but I'll try.
It's just 15 minutes.
Goosey.
It's just 15 minutes. Okay. So what's on my mind? I want to illustrate a point on this podcast because this podcast is primarily about technology, entertainment, art, just the sciences, the advancing. It's not like TED Talks where we're talking about new inventions necessarily or anything like that. Just two guys having fun. But there is a thing out there that I want to address. And that is the idea that humanity is not as advanced as we think humanity is.
Okay.
Do you follow me so
Interesting.
far? Does what I'm saying make any sense?
What you just said is very interesting. I'm wondering where you're going to take this.
Okay. And I'm going to illustrate it with this point. We as humans have lost the ability to go to the moon.
I see.
Did you know that?
Interesting. No, I didn't know we had lost the ability. I know we haven't gone to space in a long time.
Okay.
But
so
that makes sense, yeah.
In 2004-ish, somewhere along those lines, the president of the United States at that time was George W. Bush. It was 2005. And around that time, like, they were getting traction about going to Mars. Do you kind of remember this? Do you remember?
Yeah, totally.
They wanted to go to Mars. And the idea was that, let's go to Mars. That's the idea.
Let's do it.
But
I mean, it's right there.
In a
right?
statement, actually, the President George W. Bush said something interesting. We have to learn how to go to the moon first, again, before we go to Mars. So the idea. Let me explain what I'm trying to say here. How many astronauts are alive today that have the physical capability of flying to the moon that actually have done it?
Zero.
I'm holding up a zero.
Wow.
Right. How many manufacturers exist today that worked on the moon project, NASA, who worked actually helping manufacture the parts that NASA used, that are still in production today, that know how to build the parts for going to space? Zero.
Wow. You got to be kidding me. What's NASA doing? What's those? What is it, like $40 billion they give to NASA every year? Where's that going?
I don't know what they give to NASA, but to NASA.
That's right.
But a lot of that is not in a space exploration. Like, they're not really, it's rockets and sending probes out, and but actually humans going to the moon. We've lost that ability. Now, can we get that ability back? Yeah, we could. Obviously, but basically, we'd have to start from a blank sheet of paper.
Okay.
The technology that they use to get to the moon is so archaic, so old, that there's no way they could even if they took the blueprints from it, completely replicated it, it would be useless.
Okay, I see. But
So I was trying to make this point with someone, and this individual said, "Well, we have cell phones today. I'm sure we could go to the moon."
Oh, dude, there's an app for that. Okay, there is a Go Into the Moon app.
It just shocked me. I don't know what were we gonna say, Abiel. I don't want to.
But so as I'm hearing you talk, I'm just thinking about SpaceX. What about SpaceX, the Elon Musk company that is sending rockets to space or whatever, and then they're landing back on some boat?
My question to that is, how many humans are on those rockets?
Oh, okay. So you're talking about. I see. Well, interesting. So you're talking about just like getting an actual person
into
up
space.
in space or any other, heavenly body, it's celestial body.
Yeah, and it's more of an illustration just to point out the fact that like we're not as advanced as we think we are.
Okay. Yeah, some things we're regressing in some ways.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I mean, for sure, production, like human production, has gone down drastically.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Like how much people produce in comparison to what they produce, like in the 80s and the 70s. There's like an economics thing that they kind of have shown that like the production curve has actually decreased.
Okay, interesting. So you mean the production of like goods? Is that what you're talking about?
No, not just goods, but just like, okay, man, we're going deep into this. I wasn't prepared to go this deep.
Yeah. Okay.
But like, I'll give you a good example. Imagine if you lived in how far do I want to go back here? You were in the 1600s, and you fell asleep. No, let's go 1800s, and you fell asleep for 100 years, and you woke up 150 years later. Let's just say 100 years later. A lot had changed from those 100-year spans.
Okay.
A lot technology-wise, what was happening.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And then if you were to fall asleep in, like, let's say 1950, and you were to wake up in 2020, things have changed, right? There's internet, there's cell phones, there's computers.
That's right.
But literally, like, the world really hasn't changed that much. There's still trains. There's still, like, in the last, like, the technology advances that we see, like, really haven't been implemented in a way that are of, like, great benefit, we could say.
Yeah, and I think that when someone says something like, well, we have cell phone now, and they're smart, and they're small, and I can take a selfie with it in the top of Mount Everest, whatever. I think that when people say that, they think they're focusing on that one device that truly has come a long way because it's so practical, right? Everyone can carry a cell phone on their pocket, and everyone were carrying what's it called, beepers? Is that how you pronounce it in English?
Beepers.
People used to carry beepers and these older cell phones, right? And people were carrying them everywhere. So this is a good product because everyone had a beeper, everyone had a cell phone. So companies, specifically in Silicon Valley, took advantage of that and started developing these products, right? Because they knew that there was a big market. Is the point that I'm trying to make. But most of these products, most of these advancements really are coming from one place when you think about it. And that is Silicon Valley. Social media, cell phones, computers, these are all coming from the same place in California. That's why California is the biggest economy in the world. So we have made progress, but it's only in one sort of field. But as you're saying, there are other fields that we've actually regressed. Maybe you think that's because people are less productive, people are less ambitious, maybe we're resting in our laurels. What's going on?
I don't know. I don't have like an answer for that. I just think there's so much technology and that we really haven't used to our benefit. I mean, like social media, come on.
Yeah. Well, it's a tool.
It is a tool. It's a tool. And but like, you know what I mean? Like, would you rather go to the moon or would you rather have a Facebook account? I don't know.
That's right. I mean, I
hope that's not.
I'd rather go to the moon.
This is probably a little too deep for our listeners. I don't know. Is this like? What do you think?
I don't know about that. Our listeners are pretty smart.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not to offend anybody. Hopefully, no one, is hurt by that.
Yeah, but maybe what you mean is that this is a little bit too nerdy for our listeners.
Could it be?
Which I think it is. Okay, so anyway, let's go down. Let's keep going. No, let's
shut
not
me
go
down,
down.
Andy.
Let's stay where we're at and keep going with the show. So no, bro, like I thoroughly enjoy that conversation, and I hope our listeners do as well. So what's on my mind is this show that my wife and I binge watched this week because because of the coronavirus, we can do that kind of stuff now.
Yeah.
This is our life now.
What's the show?
So anyway, it's a show, The English Game. It's a miniseries developed by Julian Fellows, who also developed Downton Abbey, which is a pretty popular show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a historical drama that takes place in England about the origins of modern soccer or football. I prefer the football term for everyone out there. If we're taking sides, I'm totally on the football side, but we're in the United States. We have to put up with some things. So yeah, it's a very interesting show.
I will admit that the soccer
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make a lot of sense. I will acquiesce to that, even though I grew up hearing soccer, and I think that could be why it's not that popular here.
Yeah, it might be.
It's probably the name.
I think so. Even though it's actually the most popular sport in the world, right?
Yeah.
And this show is actually about how that got started. So it's very interesting because it used to be that football or soccer, it used to be that it was a game that pretty much belonged to the upper class. And it was the upper class that created its rules and had control over its rules. And something that would happen, which I think is ridiculous, but it happened, and it happened for a long time, was that the board members of the Football Association in England at the time, the board members were team players, and they had their own team. And most of the board members were part of the team that would always win the cup. And they are also the ones that are making the rules. So that's very, there's obviously a conflict of interest there.
Of course.
But in the show, you see how one of those Football Association members, which is an upper class member, he begins to understand that there's a problem with that. And I'm not gonna give any spoilers, and I don't recommend any show.
Please, yeah, I want to watch it. So
yeah, no, we're not gonna recommend any shows in this podcast, and we're not sponsored or anything. I'm just saying that it was on my mind, and I thought that it was a very interesting show. And one thing that I did mention in the other podcast that I didn't record, it was that it presents a really nice picture or a really interesting picture between the upper class and the lower class. It doesn't show that all the upper class are bad or the lower class are good. There's a nice balance there, a pretty realistic balance there. So yeah, it's 6 episodes.
Do they have good character development in the 6 episodes?
Very good, very very good.
And you mentioned this is the same guy who did he direct Downton Abbey?
No, but the same people that directed Downton Abbey are also involved. I didn't get their names down, but it's basically the whole Downton Abbey crew made this show.
Okay, because
2 men directed the show, and they were also they were also directors with Downton Abbey.
So the 2 guys that directed it, you said they were involved with Downton Abbey, which we had mentioned in the podcast that wasn't recorded. That I personally felt Downton Abbey did really well was like you started out with certain people you really didn't like, and as the show progresses, they grow into like this heroine or this hero, or people who you liked initially, they then become people you don't really like.
That's right. Yeah. So that's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I like Downton Abbey. I've seen some episodes and I've thoroughly enjoyed them, but I haven't seen all of it, and quite frankly, I'm not really that interested. But hearing you say that made me think of a few characters in the show where initially they are presented to you, whether good or bad, and then they grow and they become they become refined.
Yeah.
As the show goes, some of them, and it was a nice surprise to see one character that you thought was bad then not be so bad, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But it was interesting. It was an interesting watch, and Really, really good character development for sure. I mean, it's all about character development. In fact, the one critique that I have is that the actual soccer scenes, when they're actually playing, they're actually not that good. And you can imagine you have 11, 20, 22 people. You know a lot about videography, right? And so you can imagine having 22 people playing a game of football. And you're trying to make that exciting. That's probably going to be a little hard to coordinate. And so you can see that in a show like this, they didn't really invest that much budget on those scenes because, like I said, they take a long time to plan usually. So they were so none of them are very good. But anyway, well, that's besides the point.
Okay, here's my question with that. Was that done on purpose?
Like they weren't that good at playing. But it could be. The show does get, some of the players do get a little bit better towards the end.
Because I mean, that's my thought initially. Because like the amount of people wouldn't really affect how I could. Maybe it's the actors' limitations that would be the only limit. Like filming 22 people playing soccer wouldn't be that difficult with close-ups and editing, and there's a really interesting.
Well, you're getting at the point that I'm trying to make, though. You're saying that recording 22 players is not difficult. Of course, it's not difficult to record 22 players. What I mean is that making it interesting, making those 22 people playing be interesting, was difficult.
Was difficult. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because have you seen? There's an interesting, not to get on the subject of editing, but there's an interesting video out there on the lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, like the very first lightsaber fight. Which, what really, I mean, if you watch now, it's a little bit boring because, you have like, Obi-Wan's kind of old.
I like it.
But there's a new, someone's edited this. Have you seen this?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like faster cuts and then like...
much better.
It's much better.
My wife and I actually, when we watched the original, when we go back, not the original, but when we go back to the episode 4, every time we watch it, when that comes up, we actually pause it, bring up YouTube, watch the scene, re-edit it on YouTube, and then go back to the show. We've been doing that, we've done it the last 3 times that we watched episode 4, straight up.
Yeah. Way more intriguing, right?
Way more intriguing. And sorry about, I felt like I was a little bit mean earlier. I didn't mean to be mean. Sometimes I can be like that. For the audience out there, I'm being refined in this podcast as well.
And how are you?
I don't mean to be a jerk. But I was like, recording 22 people. It obviously it's not hard, Sean. Obviously. It's like, who am I? What a piece of crap. What a piece of garbage.
Well, no, but you're right. It wasn't hard filming, but I guess your point.
Okay, so let's.
What are you up to?
Do you have anything? Yeah, let's move.
What are you up to,
along to? Okay, I'm up to playing The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which is a 3-year-old video game. But that's how I do, man. That's how I do it. I don't have.
You're a married man now.
Exactly.
If you had played it right when it came out, I would be like, oof,
What is this guy doing with his life? Yeah, so anyway, it's a game developed and published by Nintendo. It was released in March 3 of 2017. The year that it came out, it won several Game of the Year awards. In the video game industry, there's a lot of people that give out Game of the Year awards. But the biggest one is the Game Awards, which used to be Spike Game Awards from Spike TV when that existed. But even though Spike TV it's gone, the Game Awards and the guy that coordinates everything, Jeff Keighley's his name, he's still doing it, and it happens online, and he gets a lot of celebrities, and it's a really big deal. It's almost as big as the Academy Awards, and in fact, it's actually watched more than the Academy Awards, way more.
I believe it.
Because it's streamed on Twitch and in the internet and YouTube, but it's everywhere. So it won the Game Awards, gave it the Game of the Year, and it also won on pretty much every category that it was competing on. So it's a pretty popular game. I'm glad it's a pretty good game. I'm glad that I was able to get around to it. People probably have heard about Zelda before because it's one of the longest running franchises in the video game industry. The first one came out in 1986. So it's been 34 years since the first game came out. The franchise has had a total of 19 releases, so 19 individual or separate video games have been released of this, which it's an average of one game every 1 year and 8 months. I'm getting real technical here, but please bear with me. But this is the most interesting. This is the most interesting fact, is that since it was released in 2017 till today, the game has sold more than 20 million copies, which it's an average of $1 billion in revenue.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and this is actually not that rare for video games. In fact, the video game industry has become by far the biggest industry in the world. The worldwide revenue of the video game industry, which is a hard number to pinpoint.
I would imagine, yeah.
Like any other, like it's the same with the film industry because so many people are doing games. But from what we can gather, in 2019, the total revenue for the video game industry was $152 billion. And it's projected that from today into 2022, that's gonna go up to $196 billion.
I would imagine it's probably one of the only industries that could would actually do better with like what's going on today with the coronavirus.
Exactly, absolutely. They have no problem. And that's a very good point that you brought up, because we've seen the biggest difference between video game sales and movie sales, for example, is that movies make most of their money when they're released in theaters in a short span of time. Video games that doesn't happen with video games because the price of entry is much higher than a movie, right? Because if you want to go see a movie, how much is that in your area?
I think a ticket's like $13 or something.
Yeah, that's right. So you just get in your car, go to the movie theater, pay $13, you watch the movie, awesome. But for a video game, for example, like Zelda, if you want to play it, you need to have a Switch, and then you also need to buy the game. The game alone is $60, and then the Switch is $300, right? However, video games have long legs, and they continue to sell over time, because over time, as consoles continue to sell, and also as busy people like me make time to play these games, then they continue to sell. And in the case of some companies like Nintendo, they actually never lower the price of their games. They stay at the $60 price point throughout the entirety of their time in the market. So we were comparing to the film industry.
Is that true? I mean, games usually drop at some point, right? Like used games or...
At the time that... Yes, eventually, for example, this game that I'm playing right now will drop in price, but at the time it drops in price, the game will be irrelevant.
Okay.
Like it will drop in price once the next Nintendo console comes out, and once the 2 other Zeldas have come out, essentially.
I see.
Like Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is on development right now. By the time Breath of the Wild 2 is released, this game will still be $60. This game will still be a full price game. That's how it is with some video games. Let's see what else. Yeah, so we were comparing it to the film industry, which is not the only industry that you can compare it to. You could compare it to the music industry as well, which that one is not even close in terms of revenue, right? The music industry has gone down, actually. The film industry, it keeps going up. But what's estimated, what I could find out there, is that for every $10 that are made in the film industry, $16 are made in the video game industry. So that's pretty much the average.
Say that again?
For every $10 that someone makes in the film industry, in the video game industry, they make $16. That's basically the point.
Wow.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically,
no, I'm following.
In 2019, like I said, in the video game revenue was $152 billion. That year, the worldwide film revenue was probably $100 billion. was around that number.
Yeah.
That's what I actually was able to gather online. And these numbers came from a professional website, so I'm not just getting these numbers out of thin air. They come from a website called TechCrunch, which is a respected website. And then the other thing is that the one thing that I wanted to mention that is notable, because okay, these people are making a lot of money, right? But who cares about that? Indie video games are also making a lot of money, and indie video games are not really that hard to make. A handful of people can make a successful indie video game and become millionaires, essentially. So, for example, last year, I'm sorry, there was this game called Untitled Goose Game that my wife and I got for the Switch. We actually got it during our honeymoon. I don't know if that's a good detail or not, but it's going to stay on the podcast now. But it's a short game. We were able to finish it in like 4 hours. And it's a small game. And it was meant to be like that. And the game is you're using a goose, an actual goose, and you go into a village and you like see a farmer and you untie his shoes and he bends down, and then you take his keys and you lock him out of his farm. That's what you do in the entire game. And it's hilarious. It's so good. And there's certain buttons that allow you to like animate the goose, so you can get really creative in the way that the goose moves, and a good player can make the whole scene look very funny. And we laughed out loud. It's very, very interesting. And that game, why do I bring it up? Is because that game actually won Game of the Year by this company called Dice Awards, which is like the second biggest video game award company. Gave it the Game of the Year last year. I'm sorry. And this is an indie video game that was developed by like 10 people, and these people are now millionaires. So it's an interesting
industry
era. It's an interesting industry, and it's an interesting era that we live in. Really, it's not hard to make a game. All you need is a bunch of computers, and then people that know to use computers. That's it. And you can all hunker down in a basement and come out millionaires at the end of the year. It's not that easy.
As long as the goose, can entice a farmer's shoes.
As long as the goose is funny.
Yeah.
You can make some good money.
Okay, interesting. Okay, what am I up to? I am editing a wedding video currently. Got in right under the wire there before the hunker down thing came into effect in certain counties. But using, I wanted to talk about how to edit a wedding video. Okay, some
Awesome.
of our listeners may be interested or not. Have you ever seen?
I'm interested in that.
Have you ever seen The Voice?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Do you like
Terrible
The Voice?
show.
You don't like The Voice?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
I don't like those shows. I don't like those shows. I actually have a pitch for a movie
Making fun of those shows.
Yeah, so like a satire that, but it's pretty gruesome. I'll leave it for another time.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So in those shows, if you've ever watched at least one episode, they will always reveal a singer. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And someone maybe comes out and sings, and then and at some point they reveal their story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that before? Can you visualize what I'm saying?
Absolutely, totally following.
Okay.
I've seen the show like plenty because my wife really likes watching it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm being a hater here, but I do enjoy when I have sat down and watched it. It's nice.
Okay,
it's not terrible.
So that's how you make a wedding video: is those reveals when they're showing the person. That's how you make the wedding video. So you shoot in 60 frames a second, pretty much the entire wedding.
Okay.
Some don't, some do, but I shoot in 60 frames a second. That way you can slow it down. And some cameras even now have 120 frames a second, so you can even go super slow. Okay. Now, what a lot of wedding editors do is they'll pay for like music rights and stuff, and there's some free music out there on different venues that you can go to, but they'll use the music to drive the video, and so you have the music playing in the background, and then you have like shots, and these shots are slow motion. The bride's walking with the groom, and they're all smiling. And what were we gonna say, Abdiel?
I was curious because you mentioned that some wedding photographers will pay for the music right.
Yeah.
Do you have to do that though? Because if that video is, you're only going to give it to that couple, why do you have to pay the rights?
Well, a lot of times you
Pay
post
for the
on
rights.
social media, so you're paying
Okay.
for like social media rights and stuff like that. There's different
I
places
see.
where you can
I
go
see.
online, but the point I was trying to make was there's a better way to edit a video, and it's the way they do it on The Voice. You hear some person like talking,
Mm-hmm.
and they're telling their story, right? So at a wedding, if it's possible, this doesn't always work out, but if you get some good speeches, you can use the speeches to drive the video, and you still have your music in the background lowered, and you still have the slow motion and everything's cutting on the beat of the music. But if you have the speech going, and it's a good speech or reasonably okay speech, it can drive the story forward of the wedding, and it's way more intriguing to listen to. It's much like what's the word I'm looking for? If you're a preview for a movie.
I see.
And imagine you're at the movies and you see a black screen, and all of a sudden you hear a voice, and that voice says something super intriguing, and then all of a sudden like slowly cross dissolve into like grass, and you hear voices again saying something, and then it shows like a building, and it shows, you know what I mean? That how they edit those previews can be used in a sense of how to edit a wedding video.
Okay, I see. Well, I can imagine that that doing what you just explained, using actual speeches or things that people said in the wedding, using those to drive the video would probably be way more intriguing and pleasing to the couple that's getting married.
Yeah,
it probably doesn't make. Yeah, it's like a win-win, right? But I was just gonna say, does that make things easier for the wedding photographer or the videographer? Or I would assume that makes things even harder, because if you just have footage and music, that's really easy, right? You just need the music. You get the footage from the wedding. You get the rights for the music, and that's it. You don't need anything else. But if you need all this recorded people talking, you need extra equipment there to get that audio, and to get that audio sounding good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you just have a recorder and a lav mic, like I'm using a lav mic right now, a lav mic will get you what you want, and you can also attach a Rode mic to your camera, but
well, I'm thinking like Hollywood. I'm thinking like the rod with the mic,
no.
The boom mic at the end. And
the reason you don't want to use a boom mic is because you are not the main focus of the day.
Okay.
The
okay.
bride,
so you mean that people
and,
get you what?
The bride and groom are the main focus. So if you walk around with a boom mic, like if you're walking around with a boom mic, you might be a little distracting. Walking around with like a video recorder and a camera stabilizer, it can be a little distracting, I'll admit, but better that than someone with a boom mic, and a lav mic will be way more intriguing. Now there are times where you at the wedding and you're recording speeches and you're recording whatever talk is being given, and it's just not that good. And in those times, you can fall on music and use the music to drive the video. But anyway, for our listeners out there who possibly are looking to do some wedding video editing or just some editing, there's some tips. Dialogue is usually more intriguing to drive a video than just music and cuts of things.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, for our audience out there, you actually shot my wedding. You shot my wedding up like you came with an AK-47 and just like went bananas.
The cops.
Yeah. No, yeah. So you were the photographer and videographer in our wedding. Is videographer even like an actual term? Is that acceptable?
I believe so. I mean, that's the term I use. Okay. Videography. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I'm not saying that it sounds weird or anything. I just wanted to make sure that it's the actual term. Because the reason why I asked that is because when I put videographer on like Google Docs, it wants to autocorrect. I'm like, I thought it was a word. Anyway.
What are you looking for?
So yeah, no, you did.
Sorry.
You did a really good job. You did a really good job at our wedding and our wedding video, and we really like it, and we showed it to everyone. And the part where the voiceover comes on, it's my favorite. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I like it.
Now, versus when I did your wedding, because you got married 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
If I were to redo that wedding, I would even rely more heavily on the speeches than I did.
Yeah. I noticed that you didn't use that much, but it was still good.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because it's not because I went like, oh, there's not as much voiceover in my wedding video. No, it's because you had told that to me before you shot the wedding. You were like, hey, so I'm gonna get some audio here because I'm gonna use that for the video. So when I finally watched the video, I was looking for it, but you did use some of it, and it was nice. But I know that you had trouble recording at a wedding too because technical difficulties or whatever.
Yeah, someone moved the mic the last minute, and I don't know who did it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That happens. That's all. It's all live. But Abdul,
yeah, no, it's all good, man.
What are you looking forward to?
So I'm looking forward to the coronavirus, this whole pandemic ending, honestly, and I think most people out there are looking for the same thing.
Yeah.
More specifically, well, I want the coronavirus to end and not kill and not hurt anyone else. But I also am looking forward to just the shelter in place mandate to end and for us to be able to go out and live normal lives.
Yeah, whenever this is all over, we'll have to hang out again. Not through Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining like the first like gathering I go to where there's people like we'll be hugging and like like just giving each other kisses and just like woo, super excited.
Totally. Thankfully, we're not in any financial situation or anything like that. This actually has been it has been a somewhat nice staycation. Definitely at the beginning, it felt great. Now it's gone for too long, and
you're ready to get out.
I'm ready to get out. I'm eager to go back to work. I actually enjoy working at the Academy of Arts where I work. And I get a lot of opportunity there to work with many different programs that I don't have in my computer, and get to learn how to use those programs there. And also, there's a lot of I can also talk to my coworkers who are also have their own expertise, and we really motivate each other to be creative and
collaborate
and collaborate. And right when the university closed. I was working on a photorealistic model of the Koi Tower. I don't know if you know what the Koi Tower is in San Francisco, but it's a famous building that people go and visit. And I was doing that for the...
I think you guys took us to there.
Yes, that's right. We did. So that was a really fun project, and I got to do some things that I didn't do before. And it's all for a spring awards that they do at the Academy of Arts, where they also encourage the students to come up with really cool works, and they submit it to the spring show. And then there's different categories, and then they choose the best out of each category. So there's like a category for animation, for modeling, for lighting, for rigging, and students get to submit their best work. And then the best is chosen. And then what we do, the staff, the works that we do, are used to make this little short animation that goes before each award. So it's like the award for animation, and then a little animation of that the Academy of Art staff did goes on, and it says something like... animation and award for such and such person, and names come out and whatever. So we also do a little bit of our own work to complement the show. So that's what I was doing that's what I was working on.
You know what I'm noticing?
Yeah.
Abdel, which is interesting. Like, and this may be why you're intrigued with making video games and designing, is you'll introduce a topic like coronavirus, and then that's right. And then you'll go from coronavirus to Koi Tower. And then from Koi Tower to award ceremony, which is good. I would like. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just noticing, listening to you. Like there's layers of of story development. And it's almost like the sprites.
Mm.
Or no, not sprites.
Okay.
What was it in the last episode you talked about? It was the lines of how to make a 2-dimensional object 3-dimensional.
Polygons.
Polygons. Your stories have layers of polygons in them.
Yeah, that's funny. That's interesting that you say that. Yeah.
You make a 2-dimensional story 3-dimensional.
Well, good. I hope. I think I do rant a lot, and listening to the first episode, I realized that I need to improve in the way that I deliver information. So this is good for me. Like I told you privately before, this is like speech therapy for me, and so I'm glad that this is working on that level as well. So what are you looking forward to, man?
Okay, third section here. I'm looking forward to the new DJI drone release. I'm a huge drone enthusiast, as mentioned before. I fly drones and all that, and but I have a little bad news.
Okay. Oh no.
There's only like pretty much one company who rules like the drone world. I don't know if you know this, but the whole industry is dominated. There's a monopoly. DJI owns pretty much like everything. They like no one's buying any other drones really.
Why is that?
Their products when this like whole drone industry started, like this is a new industry, right? It's like only in the last like 5 years has it's been around. They dominated. Like every time they came out with a product, it was the best product, and like they just were revolutionizing everything. They worked the best. It was smooth operation. They just dominated everything. So like they pretty much took over. But I have heard through websites and stuff that they're in a little bit of trouble. I don't know how accurate this is, but okay, we know where are the drones made, if you were to guess.
China.
And
specifically, they're probably made in what's it called, Shuhuan, something like that. Shuhuan.
You're probably
I'm totally destroying it.
You're probably 100% right. No, I bet you are. I didn't look up where they're made, but
Sanction. What's the name? I'm gonna Google it because this is gonna bother me. But yeah, keep talking.
Okay. Where do you think 77% of the sales for DJI's drones come from? 77%. Where do you think they come from? If you were to guess.
77?
77%.
Of the sales? Probably the United States.
Yes. Okay.
The biggest economy in the world.
Okay, so who was affected more by the coronavirus first?
The economy? It's definitely the United States.
No. I mean, I'm sorry. Who first? Where did it all come? Well, we don't know where it came from.
Oh, from China. From China,
right,
yeah.
But China's economy also was rocked. Like for weeks they were shut down, right? And for all we know, who knows what's going on now? Like as far as the virus.
That's right.
But like now, the United States is being rocked by this virus, right? So like revenue for like drone sales is like plummeted, obviously.
Oh.
Now, also, I mean, this is probably a reflection of like the whole.
I'll buy one just to contribute,
just keep it going. But this is probably a reflection of like the entire economy as a whole. But additionally, the U.S. government is trying to pass laws that they would ban the use of drones made in China. So if that does happen, millions.
Who said that? What? I'm sorry. Who's thinking of implementing that law? The United States.
United States, yeah. This is you can reference this is Bloomberg.com Business Week website, and this was the article that was ran there, and it makes some sense.
So what's going to happen?
I don't know.
They're just going to make them here in the United States, or they're going to get them from Korea or Japan or something?
There's a few companies out there that make drones. Like they're super small and they're like very, very like political, I guess you could call them. Like all over the drone it says United States. Like there's the flag on it. Like they're obviously like they know the market. And actually, one of the makers I think was previously working for Tesla. It was like someone in Tesla. But anyway. I want a new drone, but I'm afraid that the company may not survive. So who knows? Who knows what'll happen?
And what drone do you have right now?
I have a Mavic Pro. Which
This is the one that you've had. Do you have when you shut my wedding, or
yes,
it's a different one?
Yeah, no, so that's that one. And I was thinking about getting a newer model, but just haven't other business expenses and such.
Okay, so the city that I'm talking about in China is called Shenzhen, and they are the Silicon Valley of China, and there are a lot of companies from all over the world that are situated there. Or they have their manufacturing there. Anyway, so that's just something. So just an interesting point, educating our audience. Some people are saying that is the new Silicon Valley, by the way. Some people think that that's where all the new cool software and hardware are going to come.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah. There's a documentary on it on YouTube, and it's really interesting because they show you how these developers from Switzerland or Finland or whatever, they have their business there in Shenzhen. So they have a building there, and they're manufacturing their stuff there. And they explain how everything that they need to make, to every component that they need to make whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's a robot or a drone or whatever, they can get it from there. So there's not like, usually in the United States, if you want to make something, you need to have all these components shipped from all over the world. But in the case of Shenzhen, that's not the case. So they explain how in a day they can go from prototype to the actual product in like a week, because they order it and it comes the next day. Whatever component they need, they just order it, and it's delivered the next day. So yeah, they have a huge advantage in that sense. And then the people that live there, it's really cool because it's almost like a cyberpunk movie, like a futuristic dystopia movie where everyone there like knows a little bit about technology, and everyone there is like making their own smartphones and things like that, and or putting them together from like different vendors, and everyone knows how to solder. Basically, you have like
everyone just soldering parties.
Yeah, exactly. You have a grandma soldering grandma, what are you doing? I'm soldering my new iPhone. And I got a new GPU. I'm soldering. And anyway.
All right. Well, Abdul, anything you want to add? Anything you're looking?
No, there's not really anything I want to add except for tea therapy.
Tea therapy.
And I know that we don't have a huge audience, but I just want to put this out there because it really does. It really affected my experience with the game, with Zelda. And it's that in that game they added this new component that comes from games from like Minecraft and like Fortnite, all this kiddie games that the young people play nowadays. And where is that your items break. So as you're using an item, whether it's a weapon or a shield or whatever it is, it will break pretty quickly as you're playing around. So if you can imagine, I'm fighting this boss, and he's going to taunt on me, and then I'm trying to fight him, and then my weapon breaks, and I'll have to switch to a different weapon, and that wasn't like any other Zelda used to be, and it's a very tedious thing, and it kind of sometimes breaks the immersion for me.
How do you
frustrates me a little?
Can you go like to a forgery and they remake the weapon or something?
No, so some games have something like that, but in this game, no. You just have to pick up another weapon from the ground or from a chest that someone left randomly someplace, because that's how video games are.
That's yeah. Oh, here's the key that was in a box that randomly opens the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a little bit of scavenging like that, and I don't care for that. So I hope that for the next game they decide to take that away. And also the other thing the other reason why I don't like it is because your character, whose name is Link, you can sort of customize him a little bit. You can change his wardrobe. And this is what video games are all about, bro. That's what I'm all about. I'm just about dressing up my character. That's my favorite part in every game. So I like my character to look real cool, So I'm dressing him up, right? I got this clothing, whatever it is, he's looking right how I wanted to. I get him a shield, I get him a sword, and that's exactly how I want it to look. But then the sword will break like once I fight like 2 or 3 monsters, and it's like now my entire outfit looks terrible because now he has like a club with nails going through it, and it's like why is Link holding a club with like nails going through He's the hero that saved the princess. He's not. He's an elegant warrior.
But it's more realistic.
I guess so. Yeah.
Well,
anyway, so that's the little tea therapy.
You know, I had
rant.
one thing I wanted to add, but I'm going to change it. I kind of was going back and forth on this. I hope someone from Disney will listen to this podcast. I hate to keep talking about Disney and Star Wars, but nonetheless,
they will. They will.
Yeah, I hope.
Just let me handle that.
Bob K. Peck or Kai Peck or whatever. Hopefully, if you're listening, here is my way to fix Luke Skywalker. Okay.
Oh, this is. Oh, I'm listening, bro.
Okay.
Luke Skywalker is my favorite character in the Star Wars franchise.
But they broke him.
Absolutely, dude. Don't even get me started.
Okay. And let me explain why he's broken. If you're Star Wars lovers out there, in the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker, like his whole dialogue, everything he does is like, he's always like the optimist.
Mm-hmm.
We can figure it out. We can he's always super excited.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even his father, even though he knows what he did, he feels like his father can be saved. Okay.
That's right. Actually, can I add something?
Please.
In George Lucas' own words, he created the character. He was meant to be a wholesome character.
Yes, wholesome.
That's the expression that he uses.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him saying that. Okay, now you have the new trilogy. His character doesn't make any sense. He wants to kill his nephew because he thinks he can somehow possibly turn to the dark side. Like, just the idea of his nephew turning to the dark side is what forces him to try to kill him in his sleep. That is not the same character.
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense. Okay. He's also on some island world, not interacting with anybody. So how do you get from those two polar opposites? Like, there's no explanation given that really is satisfying. I'm going to give you one. Okay. You listening?
Okay. I'm ears wide open.
Because there's been a lot of talk about retconning the whole thing, like about Luke Skywalker and changing it all. If you don't want to change it, Luke Skywalker at one point had a family. He had a daughter and a wife. Okay? During this whole thing. And the reason, his motivation for wanting to kill Ben Solo is the fact that Ben Solo killed his wife and his daughter. Because at the point that Luke Skywalker decides to try to kill his nephew, he has done nothing bad.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And then that decision, catapults Kylo Ren into like this, becoming Kylo Ren. But if you take away his family, that could be some motivation for wanting to kill your nephew. I have a nephew.
Yeah.
I have a nephew, and I don't want to kill him. I love my nephew. So,
but if you know he's gonna kill your wife, then you might be like,
there's a good chance that he's probably not gonna make it. But when he does this, I feel like when he makes that decision, there's a scene where like everything blows up, like for no reason. There's like two lightsabers that collide, and then everything like explodes. Like
yeah. I guess you would imagine it's just the force. There's so much force.
Tension, I guess.
Tension.
It doesn't make any sense. So like, there's so much force tension. The only way I think,
bro, the force works in mysterious ways.
Oh,
you can't understand the force.
That's really bad writing. But here's how I think.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, I think that is Luke Skywalker becoming a Sith Lord. Like the sheer power that he has behind him causes an eruption of like a force eruption, you could say, and it blows him away. Right? He's like stunned by it, and because he sees like and when that happens, parts of this like Jedi temple that he's built fall on like all these like other Jedi people that he's been training. Maybe they die, maybe they don't. Maybe Kylo Ren kills him. I don't know. That could be edited or changed. Or
details.
But because he realizes the path that if he were to pursue killing Kylo Ren, he realizes that he would go into the dark side. He isolates himself because he's not given any reason for isolation. There's no explanation given. Nothing. I think that would at least give some resolution. I might say, or reason behind his madness.
Before you move on, so you mentioned something that I was actually thinking about. That he becomes a hermit, right, an isolationist for no reason, and that is the biggest problem that I have, because he went from being, like we said, this wholesome hero, who ended up becoming this loser, and that he's like dirty, living in a cave and angry at the world because the world's so bad. It hurt my feelings. It's like, that's not. I was just sad that Rian Johnson saw or not Rian Johnson, because actually it was his face. It was J.J. Abrams who put Luke in this position of isolated in an island. So whoever it was, that they thought, oh, we're just gonna make Luke this loser now because it's all about race, so we have to make them a loser, make him a loser. So yeah, I just didn't appreciate that. I just thought that wasn't, like you said, maybe not good writing.
And unfortunately they kind of did that with all of them.
All three, well, except Leia, because Leia had to be a boss.
But they kind of did, because Leia fought her whole life to build a world without the Empire, and yet the First Order's there. So in a way, they kind of did. So I feel like with Harrison Ford, with all three of those characters, like they really did them a disservice.
Yeah.
But there's a way to fix
I agree.
Luke. There's a way to fix Luke.
There is. And that's the most important part, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, I should say.
Well, I think that's it, Abdiel.
I think that's it. I think that brings our show into a conclusion.
I hope our listeners enjoyed it.
I hope they did too. So
until next
see
time.
you later, everyone. Until
Toodles.
2 weeks from now. Doodles.
TEA Talk is a product of TEA Talk Productions. If you like what you heard, please consider supporting the show on patreon.com. Link is in the description below. For questions, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, please email us at ttalkproductions@gmail.com or use the message system on Patreon. We're available on Apple Podcast, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Patreon. More services coming soon.
We're